Hello, this is Anthony Casa, Chairman of AIME, coming to you with a presentation on building a customer acquisition and retention-based business model versus a transactional model. One of the things that we have seen here over the last 6 months is with rates coming down, there's been this opportunity for refinance volume. And I think this is one of those opportunities that your loan originators, whether they are retail loan originators or independent mortgage brokers, because our mindset has always been so focused on developing real estate referral relationships and focusing on purchase business, that we lose touch of the importance of having a good customer retention strategy. So during periods like this is where customer retention is such a big and high importance to the future of our business and the growth of our business, because you have to understand it's not just about being able to refinance our past customers. It's understanding that being the mortgage contact, being the mortgage professional that works for our past customers, that is the person that last represented them on a mortgage transaction, is very, very important to them, looking at us as the referral source when their friends and family are looking for a mortgage and it comes up in a conversation. Most mortgage people will say, well, I have a great relationship with my customer. I do a great job for them. They're always going to refer me their customers, their friends and family, and they're also going to come back to me for a new mortgage. But the truth is that less than 14% of customers that closed on a mortgage with a retail or independent mortgage broker on their purchase transaction actually went back to that original loan originator on subsequent transactions. So it's really important that the statistics tell a very different story than what a lot of people's mindsets are. So what we're going to talk about is how we build a strong customer retention model and how we understand the difference between a customer acquisition-based and focused business model versus a transactional business model. So I'm going to run through these slides for you today. The basics are this. Customer retention is understanding that what drives a refinance transaction is not just interest rate and market conditions. A lot of people think, oh, well, I closed a customer in 2016. Right after Brexit, they got this great rate, so I never have to call them again because they're never going to refinance. And that's what the servicers and the companies that buy the servicing from the firms that we do business with are hoping that you are going to do. But the truth is that consumers outgrow their home. They have life events like, their kids going to college, home improvement, putting a pool in, consolidating debt. They have life events that drive their actions and drive their mortgage needs. So it's not so cookie cutter. Just because a consumer had a great rate in 2016 doesn't mean that great rate is going to prevent them from doing a cash out refinance to put their kids through college. So understanding that life events drive consumer mortgage needs. Next is understanding that making sure customers know you are their go-to for all future financing when you have when you close their mortgage at the time of a purchase transaction. A lot of consumers think that their mortgage guy who did their purchase transaction only does purchases. So when they have a future transaction, whether it's a home equity line of credit or a cash out refinance, they don't even think of their original mortgage guy because it was never made clear to them that mortgage originator does everything and can handle refinance transactions as well as purchase transactions. So something as basic as making it very, very clear when you're front and center with that customer and they're happy with you and you're closing that purchase transaction that you are their mortgage guy for into perpetuity. Also, for you is just creating a customer for life strategy, whether it's in your CRM campaign, whether it's creating things that are outside of your CRM campaign, whether it's mailers, postcards, whatever it is, staying in front of your customer and making sure that they, when those life events do come up, that you are relevant and that you're top of mind is really, really important. So are you saying happy birthday to your customers? Are you checking in at least once a quarter? It might not seem relevant, but just understand that there is a high percentage of customers that if you're not doing those little minor things, they're not going to be reaching back out to you. Last but not least is connecting with your customers on social media. That is one of the things that I have seen the very top loan originators do and have a great deal of success with, is just simply the ability to stay in connection with your customers past just the mundane process of the mortgage transaction but also for them to see, you're continuing to do what you do for other people. So that you're going to be sharing reviews on social media. You're going to have customers tag you on Facebook in their purchase closing picture, thanking you for your involvement in the transaction. So understanding the relevance of staying top of mind, having that personal connection, and staying in touch with your customers is extremely important to customer retention. Now, understanding how do we actually go about benefiting and capitalize on a market like this right now, where the 10-year Treasury is down big, rates are lower than where rates were, 6 to 9 months ago. They're not necessarily down huge. We're talking about 0.5% to 0.75% lower in interest rate from where customers were about a year ago. But there are small wins there, and this is what the major difference is in a strong customer acquisition and retention model versus a transactional model. You're not going to make lender-paid compensation when you're delivering small wins. You're going to have to make less money, and you're going to have to be more focused on identifying what the wins are for the customer in order for them to be tangible and in order for them to want to actually move forward on a transaction. So the way I look at this is you have to take the direct-to-consumer mindset that the loan originators that work in the call centers take when they're contacting our past customers. They're not sitting there contacting them looking for a big win. They're looking for the incremental win. So, if you had a customer that closed a year ago or 6 months ago in a 30-year fixed, and they're at 4.75%. Well, today maybe we can get them down to 4.25% on a 29-year fix or on a 28-year fix. So under those circumstances, customers' monthly payment might only go down a little bit. They might only save a little bit on the monthly payment by going down to a 29 or a 28-year fix, and a little bit on the interest rate. But the net savings, when you look at things over the life of the loan, that's where you're creating value in this scenario, is you're cutting 12 to 18 months off the amortization of their existing mortgage. So what I do when I'm looking at reaching out to a past customer that I think I can deliver a small win to is first I identify what's their current situation. So those key things are, what is their interest rate? What is their itemized principal, interest, taxes, and insurance? Because you want to make sure that you're factoring in what they closed at a year ago, and you're going to look up on Zillow or on public record what their property taxes are today to make sure that when you're calling them and reaching out to them, you're giving them quotes that are accurately reflecting what they would be, what you're actually going to be able to propose to them. You're going to want to identify what month and year they closed on their mortgage, when their first payment was, and how many months and years are left on their existing term. Because if you're going to be focused on small wins, you're going to be shaving months and years off their amortization cycle. So by doing that, you really have to understand where they're currently at in their amortization cycle on their existing loan. Do they have mortgage insurance today? And what is their estimated value? What was it back then? And what is the value as of today? Is it up? Is it flat? Or is it lower? These are things that you want to know before you start to identify how you're going to create value for your customer. Then when I'm looking at creating value, I'm looking at it from a couple of different ways. Number one, of course, we want to reduce the interest rate and the principal and interest payment for that customer. So those are, we don't have to reduce it massively. That doesn't have to be the key area where we're creating value. But that is two things that we do want to accomplish. Number two, we want to reduce the outstanding number of years on the existing term for that customer. So understanding, like I said before, how much time do they have left on their existing term, and how much can we shave off of that? Because that's where there's going to be a huge savings opportunity. That's where there's going to be that small win. Can we eliminate 18 months? Can we eliminate 2 years off their existing amortization cycle? Because if they're paying $1,000 or $1,500 a month, then you can eliminate a year or 18 months. That savings is big. $20,000 to refinance in one shot is creating value. So think about it in a very different way. Those incremental years repayment terms are going to be really, really big in cycles like this. Eliminate or reduce monthly mortgage insurance. What was their monthly mortgage insurance, when they took out their mortgage? Where is it today if we refinance? Is the value higher? Where they had a 90 LTV back when we did the loan for them previously? Are they down to an 85 LTV? Potentially, can we get rid of the mortgage insurance altogether? That's going to be something that we want to try to see if there's an opportunity to create value for the customer. Identifying the savings over the life of the loan. Monthly payment savings, number one. number of payments that we can cut off their existing amortization repayment term versus what they currently have versus what we're proposing, and comparing those side by side and being able to identify what are the life of loan savings. Most importantly, you always want to go to a customer when you're delivering small wins with a zero closing cost option. You want to give them a lender credit. You want to provide a 0 month break even point. When you're calling a customer and talking about saving $15,000 to $20,000 over the life of their loan, you're going to want to make sure that it's not going to cost them $3,000 to $4,000 in closing costs to have those savings. So you want to structure this loan not lender paid compensation for the most part. This is probably going to be a borrower paid transaction, but the reality is you want to provide a lender credit that covers their lender fees, any miscellaneous credit reports or tax service or appraisal fee, and of course all their title and settlement and recording fees. When it comes to escrows, of course, if they have an existing escrow account, if you can't net it out of the payoff, then what you're going to want to do is explain the way this works, which is they're going to get a refund from their old escrow account. At the time of closing, they're going to need to fund their new escrow account. The difference between what they're funding at closing to fund their new escrow account and what they're going to get back from their old escrow account is usually about a month worth of principal of taxes and insurance installments. And the reason why the new ones are usually going to be higher by a month is because of the fact that they're skipping a mortgage payment and mortgages are paid in arrears. So at the end of the day, that's an offset. So we want to be in a position where we are showing the customer, hey, here's your current payoff. Here's what your new proposed loan amount is, flat, no increase whatsoever. Here's a lender credit to cover X, Y, and Z closing costs. If all things are considered equal and you're not paying any cost, your break-even point is zero, then our savings are true savings that are going to be represented immediately for you. So that's what we want to do when we're providing these options. Customer acquisition strategy versus transactional mindset. These are just fundamental, this is a different mindset that a lot of your traditional loan originators have a more transactional mindset. And the direct-to-consumer operations like your Quicken Loans and your Loan Depots, they have a more customer acquisition strategy. They understand that, acquiring the customer on the first transaction is the path to retaining the customer, getting repeat business out of that customer, and also getting referrals from that customer. So, a happy customer will refer up to 3 to 4 more customers to their original loan officer. Big deal. So understand that even if you made $0 on your first transaction for that customer, if they're going to refer 3 to 4 customers to you, what value does that have? If your average customer is $3,000 commission or $5,000 commission or whatever the situation is, understanding that you have to quantify that when you're evaluating the customer acquisition of one singular customer. It's not about what you're making on the first one. It's understanding what value they bring to you. How many transactions are they going to refer to you? Also, existing relationship, the importance of closing a loan for a customer, doing a good job, and the ability to actually reach out to them in cycles like this where rates are down and there's an opportunity to do a refinance for them. That holds a big value. Somebody cold calling them from some random call center versus you, the mortgage guy that developed a relationship with them locally and did a good job for them, is going to be a much different response. They're going to pick up your phone call. They had fond memories of you. And they're going to be responsive to the small wins you're looking to present. Some random call center guys calling them, that's not going to happen. Transactional mindset's really focused on, hey, I got to make my lender paid compensation on every loan. I have to make a minimum of X dollars on every loan. That's a transactional mindset. That's just focusing on one singular transaction. It's not thinking about the repeat business you could get from that customer and also the referrals that customer is going to send your way. Also, creating a tangible value, a tangible benefit. Transactional mindset focused people are focused on refinancing customers, not based upon where they're creating a value for the customer. So we see a lot of this VA churning stuff going on right now. It's a big thing in the news. A lot of big companies are getting taken down because they were being predatory, basically refinancing veterans into loans that they probably should never have taken out. And the truth is, that's a transactional mindset. That's not looking out for your customer. So to me, when I go over putting together a presentation for a customer with small wins, I want to make sure that there is a true win for the customer. They need to be benefiting. They need to be saving over the life of the loan. We can't be, financing $5,000-$6,000 in closing costs into their principal for them to save, $10,000. That doesn't make sense. That's not doing the right thing by the customer. So tangible benefit matters. Lowering your compensation, keeping that in mind. From a standpoint of your transactional loan originator, those individuals are not going to be likely to want to make less money or take less commission to generate a new customer. That's the difference in a customer acquisition and retention strategy, understanding that that one-time commission is not as valuable as the repeat business and the long-term customer referrals. So customer acquisition, building a business. The way I always look at this and I tell people is the difference here is building a business versus building a pipeline. Transactional mindset and transactional focus is all about building a pipeline. You're getting more loans into your pipeline every month and you're replenishing the ones you're closing with new ones. And that's kind of the cycle. It's not focused on retaining your existing customers that you already did a great job on. So it's core to understand that you can do both. It doesn't have to be one or the other. You can focus on adding new loans to your pipeline. You can focus on building new realtor relationships and serving your existing referral relationships, and still focus on retaining your existing customers when these opportunities come up. Happy customers, like I pointed out before, will refer 3 to 4 new customers on average. Past customers are less likely to be price focused on repeat transactions based on existing relationships. And what that means is when you are contacting a past customer and providing them with a quote, the likelihood they're going to go on LendingTree after that or go on Bankrate and shop you around is less likely if you did a very good job the first time around on their first transaction. Home purchase transactions are considered a major life event that consumers are likely to share the experience with their friends and family. So understanding the importance of being on social media, on being in touch, staying in touch with your customer after they've closed on their home purchase. It's really, really important because that life event is going to be something that they're going to want to tell people about, they're going to want to brag about, and they're going to want to tell them about the loan officer they worked with that did a good job. So understanding that as you're looking at your customer acquisition strategy, it's really important to be part of those major life events. Understanding the difference between one customer versus the 3 to 4 customers that they will create. Some people will say, well, I won't do a loan below $100,000 or my minimum loan amount's this. I understand that you can't make any real revenue on a loan that's that small, but understand it's not about the profit on a singular loan. It's about doing a great job for the customer, creating value for that customer via a successful and happy transaction, and understanding that that customer is going to refer you 3 to 4 future customers if you do a good job, and those customers will create value for you. So understanding the major data points when putting together your proposal. So if I'm sitting down and I'm looking through my pipeline, I'm identifying the customers I want to reach out to from 6 to 9 months ago that could potentially benefit from a refinance right now. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to identify what's their current interest rate, what was the month and year of their first payment. I'm going to identify their estimated home value, the original loan amount, the outstanding loan amount based upon their amortization cycle, meaning, amortization cycle. If their first payment was 10 of 2018, and assuming they made their May of 2019 payment, all you have to do is run an AIME schedule to see where their payment balance would be after that May payment. Monthly principal and interest payment, identifying what was that P&I payment when you closed on that transaction originally. Did they have monthly mortgage insurance? What are the number of outstanding months on their existing mortgage after they made their May payment? And what is the total amount left on their repayment term? So if they were to pay those 352 payments to their existing mortgage lender, what is the total amount of those principal and interest payments? This is the foundation for you being able to actually prepare a proposal for your customer to see if there's value there to create savings. So this is your baseline. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to price the loan. You're going to want to look at what the options are. So if we close that customer in October of 2018, we're sitting there and we're able to sit there and say, okay, we got a customer that's 8 months into their existing mortgage. So we want to add a minimum, take them down to a 29-year fixed. That would be the baseline. That's the minimum. But realistically, our goal would be 28-year or 27-year fixed, depending upon whether we can reduce their rate and reduce their payment at one of those price points and provide a lender credit. So here's the pricing from yesterday, just showing, 4.25%. Our customer is currently at 4.75% on a 30-year fix with 8 payments into that 30-year fix. So if we were looking at a 29-year fix, the same pricing would be obviously on a 28-year fix as well. At 4.25%, there's roughly a $4,700 credit for that rate if you did a borrower-paid transaction. So the way I'm looking at this loan, again, small wins. The goal here is to give them a rate and a payment that allows them to reduce their monthly P&I and cut years off their amortization, and provide a lender credit that can cover their closing costs. So 4.25 is not making a ton of money, but it's enough money in the state of New Jersey, at least, to cover their closing costs, their title, their recording fee, their credit report fee, those miscellaneous minor fees, and their appraisal fee if there is one, and also still make close to $3,000 on the transaction. So yes, it's not going to be full lender paid compensation, but this is customer acquisition and customer retention, small wins. So what I would do before I move on to actually giving our customer their quotes is I need to make sure that $4,800 is going to cover their closing costs. Now remember, we're not looking to cover their escrows. That's going to be offset. Their existing escrow account is going to come back to them. They're going to fund their new escrow account. That's a full offset. So what we're really focused on is the true closing cost. So what I'm going to do is prepare a estimated closing cost for this customer. In this case, I put together essentially a loose estimate of recording fee, title and settlement charges, flood cert, tax service fee, credit report fee, with a $4,500 credit, which is actually less than the credit that we saw before because that was on a 30-day lock. I did this on a 45-day just to be safe. That would put us in a position where the borrower origination charge could be $2,600. All closing costs would be fully covered, and the customer would not be coming out of pocket for any cost, other than obviously their funding of their escrow account. So that's point number 2: is we price the loan, identify where we're at financially, and what our ability is to cover costs, what the rates are on these terms, identify what the closing costs are, and the next thing that we're going to do is we want to identify what their cash to close is. So the way this was structured is their cash to close would be exactly what their prepaid items are. And the reason for that is A, they're going to skip payment, and B, they're going to get their escrows refunded to them from their existing lender. Now, in a perfect world, if you're using the same lender that you closed on a loan with previously, so if you closed on a loan hypothetically with Caliber or HomePoint or UWM, and now you're going back to that same lender now, you should be able to net escrows out of that payoff. And if you are able to do that, then you'll be in a situation where their payoff will be lower by their existing escrow bounds, and that will create that complete offset right at closing for what they're funding in their new escrow account with what they're having deducted from their payoff from their old escrow account. But if not, you just explain it to them, very straightforward. Identify what the amount is in their existing escrow account and that they're going to get it back after closing within 30 days of the loan being paid off. You're going to want to explain to them that they're skipping a monthly mortgage payment. You're going to want to identify that mortgages are paid in arrears. It's really important when you're explaining that payoff that they understand that compounding interest and the fact that even though they're not going to have a payment due for the first of the following month, so if they close in May, they wouldn't have a payment due until July 1st. But the reality is interest is due in arrears, so that's really the interest for June. So you're going to want to connect the dots on these things. Identifying why there's an origination charge. Identifying what the lender credit is actually offsetting, and identifying what the minimum requirements are from a documentation standpoint. This needs to be an easy transaction. So if we closed a loan for a customer a year ago, we shouldn't need a lot of documentation. We should have a very streamlined process because we've already done the loan for them once and we're familiar with their employer from a VOE perspective. We know who to order a payoff from, their homeowner's insurance company. So we really want to identify what do we truly need from the customer to get this transaction across the finish line. Now, UWM just rolled out the Appraisal PreCheck. This is a huge win for mortgage brokers, of course. So for me, this puts us in a position where before I would need to run credit and run the AUS to be able to identify whether an appraisal is required. And it's a big deal that now you can actually put the property address in and identify if it's going to get away with an appraisal waiver. Because now, before you even run credit, before you run AUS, you can actually go back to the customer and truly identify that there's no appraisal required. And that's kind of one of those things that whenever you're refinancing somebody, it can always be a hiccup. Value could come in short. Something could come up in the appraisal inspection. So the ability to kind of take that off the table It's a big deal, especially in environments like this. So to me, when back in 2016 and 2017, before I started doing Brawl and AIME, we would just have to call the customer, get authorization to pull credit, and run the AUS. Now we're in a situation where we can actually find out if they have an appraisal waiver before we ever get to that point. Putting together the proposal. So in this scenario, I put together two proposals for the customer, one on a 29-year fixed, one on a 28-year fixed. As if you remember, the customer's existing term on their existing mortgage is 352 months. So they're about 8 months into a 30-year fixed. As you can see on proposal one, which is 4.25% on a 29-year fixed, they would be shaving about 4 months off their amortization by going from 352 outstanding months down to 348 months. They would be saving monthly by reducing their payment down to $1,263. And over the life of the loan, they would save $21,000 in total payment reduction and interest reduction. On proposal two, same rate, 28-year fixed. Monthly payment is a little bit higher than what it was on the 29-year fixed, but still lower than where they're at on their existing 30-year. In this scenario, they're now going from 352 outstanding payments all the way down to 336 outstanding payments. So they're able to save $29,000 in small wins. So think about that small win going from 8 months into a 30-year fix down to a 28-year fix, shaving those months off the amortization, lowering the rate slightly, and being able to be in a position where they save a quick $29,000. So to me, that's a small win, but that's also what's going to generate referrals and put you in a position where you are truly viewed as the advisor with that consumer when it comes to all housing needs moving forward. Last thing is in our Arrive platform for all AIME members, there's just a kind of a quick highlight of some of the integrations that are currently pending. And the reason why this is important is going back to building that customer for life strategy, going back to like being front and top of mind in your customers' heads. It's really important that you have the resources built into your CRM to put your front and center. So these are some of the companies that we've partnered with at Arrive to make sure that independent mortgage brokers are getting the same information, data, and technology to drive the intelligence behind their CRM to stay in front of their customers. So whether it's home value alerts, whether it's MLS notifications if your past customer listed their home for sale, whether it's a credit trigger, credit monitoring to identify if the credit score went up or down, or if they recently had an increase in their credit card debt and you might need a cash out refi, whether it's something like Journaya, which is more of a tracking tool that can tell you if a customer of yours is currently on Realtor.com or is currently on Bankrate.com, is shopping around for home loans without becoming a lead. They can actually just tell you if a customer went to one of those websites. So these are all tools that are best in class that, in our opinion, will create the best customer for life CRM tool within the Orion platform and put brokers in a position where they can stay top of mind. So that's all I got for you today. I hope you were able to get something out of this, and I look forward to seeing everybody soon. Thank you, and talk to you soon.